Close your eyes, not to remember a place but a moment. The house after everyone had gone to bed. Not silent, just settled. This was a winter night in 1970s Britain, when homes didn't hum or glow. They rested. The walls held the day inside them. The air cooled slowly. Nothing rushed. Upstairs, doors were closed but not locked. Light leaked faintly from the landing, enough to remind you that you weren't alone. Somewhere below, the house made small sounds of its own. Pipes ticking, wood adjusting. You lay still, listening, not waiting for morning, just feeling the house around you. You didn't know it then, but this was the safest moment of the day. This wasn't a special night, just a winter one. Britain in the 1970s moved slower after dark. Streets emptied early, shops closed, curtains were drawn before the cold could see inside. Houses learned to keep their warmth close, not spread thin. Central heating was rare. Most homes had one warm room and several cold ones. The rest of the house waited patiently for morning. Radiators, if they existed at all, were already cooling. Upstairs, the air was sharp and clean. It made you pull the blanket higher. Downstairs, heat stayed low, gathered near the floor, near the fire, near the place where people had been sitting only minutes before. The day was over. The house knew it. The house didn't sleep all at once. It went quiet in layers. First the stairs, then the hallway, then the rooms behind closed doors, each space settling in its own time. The clock on the landing kept watch, patient and even. Shadows stretched along the walls, corners softened. The ceiling felt higher in the dark. Light from the landing thinned as someone turned it down, not off. Somewhere a door clicked, not slammed, just enough to say this room was done for the night. The house was closing itself. Cold wasn't something you escaped. It was something you managed. It crept along the floors first, settling around ankles and chair legs, finding every place warmth didn't reach. Upstairs, it pressed gently against the blankets, reminding you to stay still. Light did the opposite. It gathered, one lamp left on downstairs, a thin line under a door, a glow that didn't try to fill the house, only to mark where heat still lived. That light mattered more than brightness. It meant someone was awake not long ago. Someone had cared enough to leave it. The rest of the house stayed dark. And that was fine. You didn't see anyone. You just knew they were there. A chair moved softly downstairs, the quiet scrape of wood on linoleum. A kettle placed back on its ring, not boiled, just checked. The television clicked off, its hum fading until the room remembered silence again. Footsteps paused on the bottom stair, not coming up, just listening, making sure everything was where it should be. Doors were left slightly open, lights turned lower, never snapped off. Movements were careful, as if the house itself might wake if handled roughly. You stayed still, not pretending to sleep, just letting the night continue. At the time, it didn't feel important. It was just how nights were. Only later would you understand what was happening, that nothing was wrong. Nothing needed fixing. No one was in a hurry. This was the moment the day loosened its grip, when responsibility shifted away from you quietly without ceremony. You didn't know the word for it then, safety, but your body knew. It learned it here, in this stillness, in this ordinary night, held together by small, careful acts you never saw. The house did more than keep out the cold. It held the world at a distance. Walls were thick with habit. Doors knew when to close. Locks were turned the same way every night, not out of fear, but out of routine. That routine mattered. It told you everything was where it should be. Outside, the street existed, but it couldn't reach you. Inside, the rooms stayed in their places. Nothing shifted. Nothing demanded attention. You didn't think of it as protection. It was just how home worked. Beyond the glass, the night had settled too. Streetlights stood still, their glow caught in the cold air. Cars were already parked for the morning. Curtains along the road were drawn, each house keeping its own quiet. The world had agreed to pause. Shops were dark, pavements empty. Somewhere far off, a bottle clinked. Then nothing. You didn't feel alone in that silence. Others were there too, unseen, inside their own warm rooms, waiting through the same night. The street wasn't asleep. It was resting. Time moved differently then. It didn't push you forward. A clock ticked somewhere in the house, steady and unconcerned. It wasn't counting down to anything. It was simply passing through the night. You drifted in and out of sleep, not deep, not awake. Each time you opened your eyes, the dark was the same. The house unchanged. That sameness mattered. Nothing had shifted. Nothing had started without you. Morning would arrive when it was ready. Morning was already there, somewhere ahead, not as noise or movement, just as a promise the house understood. Clothes waited at the end of the bed, laid out carefully, not for excitement, but for speed. Every extra second in the cold mattered. You didn't imagine the day itself. You imagined warmth, a room downstairs, a light switched on, the feeling of moving without rushing. The night still held you, but it was loosening its grip. Years later, this night would return to you without warning. Not as a story, as a feeling. A quiet that arrives when life feels too loud. A slowing in your chest when everything else is moving too fast. You wouldn't picture the house clearly, just the temperature, the stillness, the sense that nothing urgent was required of you. Your body would recognize it immediately, before thought, before memory. It remembered learning this once, that it was possible to be held without being watched, that the world could wait. By morning, the night would be gone. The house would wake. Sounds would return. Doors would open. But this part would stay untouched. One house, one winter night, held together by habit and quiet care. Nothing dramatic, nothing announced, just enough warmth, just enough time. Even as years passed, even as houses changed and streets grew brighter, this night would not shrink. It would remain the same size inside you, not because it was better, but because it was contained. And for a while, that was enough.